What's up, everybody, and welcome to the channel. My name is Sylvanas, and today I'm going to be showing everybody out there a comprehensive guide to playing Sylvanas competitively. The reason for making this guide is because I think that Sylvanas is a really good hero. People are kind of picking her up and using her a little more often now, but I don't think quite enough, and I want to show why she's so good. So the first big thing I want to say with her is that she is, I would argue, one of the best first pick assassins you can take in almost any game. And the big reason why is because she's one of the most flexible assassins in the game. The way her kit works is she does stacking damage for more auto attacks that she does on a single target, which you'll get these little indicators here showing the number of stacks you have, and you can see we're critically hitting with her now. She also has an activatable trait that turns off minions, mercenaries, and structures, which is really good, and that gives you the ability to push a lane down more effectively, whether that is you as a team pushing with an objective, or let's say that your team is even pushing with an objective and you want to split push in another lane. Really good at that. And finally, her kit overall just works really well. There's a variety of different builds you can go on her, and Sylvanas is actually one of the few heroes you can build almost any way you want and it works. She has what I would consider to be very few bad talents. There are a couple that we'll go over that I don't think are very good, but for the most part, she's really, really good. And I mean, even if you look here, you'll see that all her level 1s are pretty viable, all her level 4s are pretty viable. Again, her 7s are a little iffy, but we'll go through that really fast. Quick rundown if you've never seen it before. I already explained the trait a little bit. Her Q is a unique ability because you just fire and forget. You activate it, and whenever there's an enemy near her, where this little triangle icon goes is where her Q is going to go. So if I activate it, it causes her to prioritize that. If you're ever in a lane against heroes and you're doing damage to minions, provided that the hero comes close to this little big circle on the outside of her, it will switch from prioritizing the minions to prioritizing the heroes. So keep in mind, it's not just some RNG thing that won't hit the most important targets, which is usually heroes. It will prioritize whatever's closest and whatever it thinks is the smartest thing or the most important thing to hit. Her W, pretty simple. You throw it on a target, it deals some shadow damage. If you auto-attack it before the dagger falls off, it'll actually spread the damage onto other targets and do a little bit less. Finally is her E, Haunting Wave. You fire this out in a direction, it does damage to everything that it hits, but the other thing it does is you can actually reactivate it to teleport. This is equally your most important engagement tool with certain builds, as well as your most important escape tool. One thing I will say before we get too far into this is your ability to use your E can be a lifesaver. Just to give an example, let's say that you're in a team fight and this area is actually closed off. Your team's aggressing up a little bit and you're auto-attacking in. You can actually be chasing somebody down in this area here, but then you see them coming. So what you do is you're going this way, and then you teleport back. This also works really well for my EV players and for anybody who's trying to fake out the enemy team. So let's say, for example, the enemy team is chasing you down, and there's a lane here and a lane here. As you're running away, you can throw your E this way, and if they try to chase after the Haunting Wave, then you just keep running straight down. If they decide, well, no, we want to actually pursue the Sylvanas, then you can even throw this out here, and then before it's over with, teleport and get away. So it's a great escape tool. Knowing the area around your character and knowing the escape paths you need to take are really helpful, and just makes her a really strong hero. Now, I don't want to spend a ton of time going every single tier by tier by tier to explain everything, so to try and avoid that, I want to just go through the builds that I think are good on her, and then I'll go back and explain the talents I don't take. So the first build that Sylvanas can go that makes her really good is a sustained auto attack hero. For that, you're going to want to go Might of the Banshee Queen. Any of these work at 4. You're going to want to probably go Lost Soul, just because we're going through the whole thing and we're level 20 already. I'm going to do... We'll do Unstable Poison. Lost Soul. Either of these work, but for this case, we're going to go Wailing Arrow. Remorseless, Life Drain, and Withering Mirage. So the point of this build is constant harassment. This is a build where if they've got two fairly beefy or three fairly beefy frontliners or fairly beefy heroes that don't have a ton of like engage or a ton of like mobility, this can harass that front line a lot. So if they have like a Garrosh, if they have like a Johanna can kind of be mobile if she takes Falling Sword, but for the most part, doesn't have a lot of great engage tools. She has to use abilities to set up her mobility and set up her engage. Heroes like Asmodan don't have a ton of great engage or disengage. They can do a bunch of damage, but they're not great for like jumping onto you. This is a build that's great for that, because the whole point of this build is you are using your level 1 to give you faster auto attack speed every time a hero's hit. You're gaining faster auto attack speed and damage, which makes you really, really strong at being able to apply a lot of pressure to a single target. Don't use this with blinds, or if you're going to use it with blinds, try to wait out the blind on you. Usually this is off of a Johanna or a Cassia, and then start following it up with auto attacks. Level 4, we'll talk about that separately because that's an entire thing on how you should be using your abilities with the minion waves and for pushing lanes, etc. The more important thing to talk about is level 7. In this case, I'm a big fan of Lost Soul, because how Lost Soul works is you throw your dagger onto a target, and every time you're landing an auto attack on that target, you're reducing the cooldown of your Shadow Dagger. This helps you to spread the dagger more often, because you're able to put it on targets more often and do more damage. It's really strong. 10, Wailing Arrow. It's just Wailing Arrow. It's really good. If you don't know how to properly use this, you can fire it off, and then you can reactivate it in its path to activate the silence. I'll actually throw cooldowns on really quickly, because you can fire this off really fast, like right on top of your face, or you can give it a little bit of travel time, or you can even just let it go on its own, and it'll self-activate. It's usually not a good idea, but you have control over when that arrow triggers, so it's a really strong interruption tool, can create a lot of chaos in a team fight. Usually this is great as a follow-up for someone like Diablo, or for a Nubarak, someone that dives in. You want to follow up that dive by silencing the team so they don't really have anything that they can do to do something to your tank. It's a great engagement tool. It's also at times a great peeling tool, because if you have like a Jaina that's trying to jump in and do a bunch of damage, it can interrupt her really effectively. Just a strong talent overall. At 13, with this sustained damage build, there's two different build paths that you can go, and they're both viable. Personal preference is I prefer Remorselessness. The reason why is because if you're going with Q build at 1, there's a pretty good chance that you're trying to do more safe, sustained damage. And with Remorseless, I apologize. With Remorseless, you're passively increasing your auto attack range by 1. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it makes you safer. It's similar to taking Silvered Bullets on Greymane. That extra auto attack range does make you considerably safer. Not only that, as you're auto attacking a target, at 3 stacks, you start chaining your attacks onto the nearest target to the one you're hitting. This is where it works really well for, like, if an enemy team has a Garrosh and a Jaina. That's a really good combo for Sylvanas to go into, because Garrosh doesn't move very fast. Not only does Garrosh not move fast, Jaina has to step up close with him to do anything effectively. This is where you want to be poking at a target as much as you can from a distance. Not only that, when you're using your auto attacks on this target here, and you spread the shadow damage, you're increasing that cooldown by quite a bit. And you're able to just constantly throw daggers out in this case. So it lets you apply pressure across the board very effectively with this. Equally though, you could also go for Cold Embrace as well, just so you can be resetting the cooldown on Shadow Dagger by a lot. It gives you a chance to throw a lot more Shadow Daggers out. Sorry about that. It's not important. You just get to throw out a lot more Shadow Daggers more often, which means you can apply a lot more pressure to that frontline tank a lot more often. This is great because it means that you're able to reduce the entire armor of the enemy team. Shadow Dagger makes the frontliner take 25 less armor, and the rest of the team 10 less armor. That means that their primary tank, the one that's supposed to protect the team, is getting hurt a lot quicker, and even the rest of the team is taking a lot of damage. So if you got a dive-heavy comp, again, Sonya, Anubarak, Diablo, etc., throw the dagger on that front target, start spreading this poison damage out, keep daggering that tank that they have, keep spreading that poison damage out. Diablo, Sonya, all those heroes will try and keep those teams like clumped up and fighting them, and you're just spreading damage all around. It's tons of damage going out on the entire team. Put this with like a Kael'thas or like a Lunara, and it hurts a lot. So Cold Embrace is a good alternative for this. 16, I'm a little biased. I love Life Drain. I think Life Drain is amazing. If you're going to be taking Life Drain, though, you need to be hitting multiple targets with 3 stacks of your trait. This is why Remorseless is really good, because if you can auto-attack a single target and spread the trait onto 2 or 3 people, like let's say this target moves away and another target gets close, and you chain up to 3 stacks on them, then you're getting a lot of passive healing off of Life Drain. If you want a more all-around consistent talent, Will of the Forsaken is the best, because it's a flat 40% movement speed, which makes you zoom, and you're unstoppable. So you can't get locked down, which can be really, 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 really good. At the same time, though, I shouldn't be getting caught out on Sylvanas, again, because as I'm fighting, if I'm ever in trouble, I should just be able to do this and get away. If I get caught because of a rotation that I do, I'm probably doing something wrong, I'm probably out of position, and I'm probably going to die on her anyway. So shame on me as the ranged assassin. Evasive Fire is also really good with this build because you do tend to want to go Might of the Banshee Queen for your Q stuff. So having the extra movement speed passively is really good, and you're going to be landing a lot of auto attacks. So it's a way for you to not only escape better, but also chase a target down better. So any of these talents at 16 work really well. At 20, it's kind of a mixed bag because realistically, any of these talents work. It just depends on what you're doing. If you're taking Wailing Arrow, the center area of Deafening Blast is pretty small, so it requires a lot more pinpoint precision firing, and you might start sacrificing just getting like a general AoE silence off on a target instead of, you know, alright, I want it to hit exactly this middle target here, or this target here. Now I'm trying to more precisely aim it to like burst a target down, instead of actually using it for the utility of it. So I'm personally not a big fan of Deafening Blast because it's causing me to then recontextualize how I should be using this ability outside of what it's meant to be. Sylvanas is going to do plenty of damage on her own. She doesn't need her heroic to do more. It's more of a win more talent more than anything else. So I really don't like it. Personally speaking, I like Withering Barrage because this causes your Q to start chaining your trait off of other targets. Or, sorry, no, I'm thinking of the wrong talent here. Every time you land your Q on a target, you're going to get the cooldown on it to go faster. So you'll just be throwing Qs out aggressively like it's nobody's business. It's just crazy amount of damage this can do in the right setting. So it's... You'll get tons of CR on everything. It lets you apply a lot of damage. Wait a minute. Withering Fire applies Banshee's Curse hitters. That's what I thought. Sorry, my brain's not with me today. So if I hit Q, it's applying the trait, which means it makes it easier for me to chain my trait off of other targets. So you're not having to sit here, essentially, and stack up my trait with auto attacks on one target first. I can just hit my Q, and I'm chaining the trait around a lot faster. Again, in combination with Life Drain, makes that regen much quicker. I apologize. Caffeine still hasn't kicked in yet today, I guess. Bolt of the Storm is another good alternative as well. It's kind of similar to the Will of the Forsaken and Evasive Fire. It gives you more mobility. It gives you an escape tool. It gives you a way to get away from bad situations much more effectively. It just makes you a safer hero all around. So that's the first build. Second build we're going to talk about is what I like to call the Wombo Combo build. This build in particular makes you do tons of damage to a single target. And it's all centered around Mind Control. The way Mind Control works, if you've never seen it before, is you throw out a skill shot, it'll hit the first hero that it comes into contact with, and with the patch changes they did a little while ago, the target that gets hit gets 3 stacks of your trait immediately once they're hit. So all you gotta do is find the target, hit them with a Mind Control, and then start doing damage to them, and start scaling up really fast. And that's part of the beauty of what Mind Control does. Mind Control is not only just a great follow-up tool, so if you have a hero like Varian, Garrosh, if you have somebody that's taking Uther, or if you have somebody that's playing Stitches, anybody that has a way to displace a single target or a lock single target down, all you do is wait for that lockdown to happen, throw the ability out, and you get a free snag on somebody because they're forced to walk towards you and they've got 3 stacks of your trait. Where the 3 stacks of your trait comes into play and is really important is level 1. Because instead of going for Might of the Banshee Queen for more spell power, we're going for Overwhelming Affliction. Where anybody that has 3 stacks of your trait, they're now slowed by 15%. Kind of a counteractive way for it to work with mind control, you might think, because it's like, okay, well, they're slowed. That means that when they're walking towards you, they're coming at you slower. While that's true, they also are 15% slowed as they try to walk away from you, which is big. Not only that, as you throw out your trait and you start hitting them with auto attacks, you're now doing 1% of their health as auto attack damage. Which, I mean, training dummies have ludicrous amounts. Yeah, you can see, I think that says, I think that's 1 million. So, I mean, technically I'm doing 1 million damage per auto attack, or 1% of 1 million. So, numbers are going to be a bit skewed there, but point standing, you can put out a lot of damage just from landing the mind control and auto attacking a few times. Where we go from there, again, level 4, we'll talk about that after I'm done talking about the builds you can do. Very map dependent, very dependent on what you're trying to do in the map, etc. Level 7. This is where you start to do some really obnoxious stuff with Sylvanas. You go for Festering Wounds. And the reason you're going for Festering Wounds is because this is an immediate 15% slow to everyone. Because you're immediately getting 3 stacks of your trait on everybody hit by your E. Now what this does as well, and something you have to be careful about, is that your E suddenly becomes another engagement ability and transforms from being an escape tool into suddenly being an aggression tool. Now you can use it for either one. You can use your E aggressively or defensively. And in fact, once you hit, I would say, once you hit 10 or 13, either one, you really should not be throwing your E out to try and get a pick on a single target, especially when you hit 13. Provided you can land your mind control and Shadow Dagger right after that, you're going to be blowing the target up pretty effectively in combination with whoever you're playing with. You don't need to throw the E out on top of that. So once you hit 13, you probably want to save it more as an escape tool, or in my case, because I like to do life drain so much, turn it into a burst heal ability. Because guess what? It says that you heal for 15% of the damage you deal to enemies with 3 stacks of the Banshee's Curse. Let me take some damage here real quick. Oh, Lord. Come on, guys. I'll have to get the boss to deal damage to me. There we go. That's some real damage. Just watch this real quick. So, I've got Life Drain. I'm going to throw my E on these 3 targets, and already gained a pretty decent chunk of my health back. Let's say I'm in a team fight. I'm going to throw my E in and start trying to do some damage with Shadow Dagger. Watch this.
The moment is upon us.
Yeah. That's just hitting a Q and a W. The W chained to 2 targets. My Q hit 1 target, and my E hit everything. That's a lot of damage, because you're doing the percentage damage off your auto attacks, your Q damage, your damage from your Shadow Dagger onto the primary and secondary targets. You're also doing the E damage. It just adds up. It does a lot of work. So it's really, really good for that. The reason we go Cold Embrace at 13 is because we're doing the armor reduction. I mentioned it before how it's really good in the sustain fights. You especially want this for the mind control build because you're trying to throw out your mind control and you're trying to chunk damage as much as you can. You can do quite a significant amount of burst and you're still slowing them and still doing the percentage damage per auto attack. It adds up really fast. Finally, at level 20, if you're going mind control, it's almost no contest. You really want Dark Lady's Call. You can definitely make a case to have the level 20 Bolt of the Storm for more mobility, since you're going to be using your E aggressively to spread your trait on a bunch of targets and then Shadow Dagger and then do all this AoE damage, etc. But the thing is that reducing this cooldown from a 40-second cooldown to a 15-second cooldown is huge. Not only that, anybody that's hit by mind control has their vision reduced for 5 seconds, which is If you want a good idea of what it's like for their vision to be reduced, think of isolation from Dahaka. That's not what Sylvanas does to the first target that gets mind controlled. It's really good. It's a great ability to follow up because you're getting mind controls off so much faster. And again, in combination with everything that you have here, you're looking at reducing the cooldown to get more picks, to do more burst damage, to get a ton of healing off in team fights. It's just a great build. Final build I'll talk about today. Whoops. Final build I'll talk about today is W build. This is the Shadow Dagger build. This one is interesting because the thing is that this one in particular can be really good. One of the maps that I think it's the best on would probably be Tomb of the Spider Queen, specifically because of the fact that on Tomb, usually what you'll have is you'll have your team kind of rotating between top and mid to do a lot of work in clearing the waves, and that will cause you to do a lot of team fighting. So what you do is whenever the other team steps up into the wave so you can attack them, you'll throw your dagger on the front line, start auto-attacking them, spread the poison out if you can. Doesn't really do a lot until 7 because the other targets won't be stacked with 3 stacks of your trait. But you throw the dagger out, you're doing lots of damage to that frontline tank, you're starting to generate stacks. Again, we'll talk about the level 4s after this. We'll just do this. You're going to go Festering Wound because, again, same deal as before with the trait build. You're getting all the benefits of the other targets having 3 stacks of your trait. So in this case, before I even pick anything, I do this, I throw my dagger. I'm getting stacks off of all 3 of these targets here who have the trait on them. And in one throw, I was able to get 14 stacks. So my Shadow Dagger now does 7% more damage every time it does the initial damage and the ticking damage, like the dot damage, I should say. Actually, all damage. My bad, I was right. So it's just a really strong talent to have because it lets you throw the dagger on a target, spread it to everybody with your E, and then you're able to follow it up with an auto attack to spread that poison, and boom, a ton of people are taking damage. So dagger at 1, whatever at 4, wounds at 7. In this case, because this is more of a heavy chunk poke build, you're not trying to necessarily go pure burst. This is more spell-oriented AoE damage instead of the first build, which was more auto-attack oriented AoE damage. That means that when you hit 10, you're probably going to go Wailing Arrow. Now, I really like Cold Embrace because it falls into somewhat of a similar category to what the first build did. But the only difference this time is that instead of just auto-attacking and chaining your damage off of all those targets, you want the damage to be meaningful. Remorselessness doesn't really line up well with this build because you already are spreading your trait with Festering Wounds. So instead of trying to just spread the trait around to get more CDR and things like that, you want to make the damage that you do with your W matter. So you're usually going to go Cold Embrace. Similar to your burst build, Life Drain is really good for that reason. And in this case, again, we don't want Deafening Blast. Deafening Blast doesn't really matter here. Withering Barrage, we're not really using our Q that much in this build, or that's not the focal point of the build. And you're not getting tons and tons of CDR value off of it, so you're going to want to go Bolt of the Storm in this build. Because then you can step up, throw your trait out, start spreading it around. If someone dives on you, back out. More than likely, though, you're going to E in very carefully, pick a target, throw your dagger, attack them, throw your Q, and then keep staying back and playing safe. I will say the one big thing between all 3 of these builds, right off the bat, is that with the auto-attack build, your E is exclusively used for mobility. It's a great wind-up blink almost, and it's bigger than blink. Think Li Ming, but with a bigger range. It's a little more risky because you need to set it up and then activate it so you don't get hit, but once you activate it, you're unstoppable mid-flight, so you're fine. Nothing can slow you down. If they try to root you, let's say that again, you're trying to run away from the enemy team, you're running through here, there's a lane here and a lane here, Malfurion puts his roots here. As long as you get past the roots and you teleport, you're not going to get stopped by the root there. So this is a great disengage tool. With this first build, again, that auto-attack centric build, you're going to more times than not use it as an escape or an engage tool. and that's all you're really going to use it for. Second build, you're going to probably use your E more as like a burst heal or as a way to get a lot of burst damage off, because you want that trait to slow the team down. Your dagger will hit the target and start spreading onto people, which will give you some nice overall damage output. You're wanting to, if you take Life Drain, again, I love this talent. It's my favorite on this tier. It's a good burst heal for you. Your whole point with this second build is you want to blow somebody up. So you can use your E either for team fight damage or as an escape tool. Or pre-13, you can use it as a way to just apply your trait to a target again. You can even use this with like a Varian, where if Varian tries to taunt somebody you don't have mind control, you throw your E, hit the target, they're 15% slowed on top of whatever slow Varian does on his Q, and you just chase them down and auto-attack them and throw your dagger on them for more damage, etc. With the third build, the dagger build, you're pretty much always using your E on cooldown in big team fights because you're trying to chunk out as much damage as you can by doing a lot of spell-based poison damage. You need Bolt of the Storm to be safe. It is the one time where I'm like, you really want this, so hence why that. So I know I've been going on this whole time about like, oh, we'll talk about this later as far as talents go. All of these talents kind of synergize within themselves at certain levels and with certain degrees. But if there's any one set of talents that I'm going to talk about the most as like, just don't take these, it's going to be Barbed Shot and Windrunner. Barbed Shot, if you land all 5 shots of your Q on a single target, the 5th shot does 350% damage. There is not a lot of times where this is really good. The one time I will say it is good is against heroes like Zeratul, Genji, Illidan. Heroes that jump on you and try to stick to you for burst damage. You can hit your Q, throw your dagger on the target, auto-attack them, A move so you don't get like blown up and just sit there like a duck while they hit you. But that 5th shot that comes out on Barbed Shot takes a chunk of their health with them and can do a lot of damage and make them go, oh no, I gotta run. That's what Barbed Shot's good for, is specifically those matchups. And I can't even argue it for very well there, because again, if I'm doing the sustained damage build, I would much rather just have Lost Soul going, where I'm getting CDR, more damage, etc., and I can spam it out a lot more often. Don't want it in any of the other 2 builds because you want the burst. Either you want the AoE damage or the single target slow so you can pick somebody off. Definitely don't want it here because I want to spread my trait more effectively. So Barbed Shot, more times than not, is just not very good. And then Windrunner. The way this works is when you activate it, you're able to activate your Haunting Wave a second time after you throw it out the first time. So you can run around, activate it, hit Haunting Wave, you teleport. It'll let you activate it again one more time after that. This is like high risk, moderate reward in my experience. Because the thing is that while it's cute that you can jump forward with like Festering Wounds at 7 and get that 15% slow on a bunch of people, the problem then is that you're putting yourself right on top of an enemy team, and you might be able to like teleport, get up, and possibly catch somebody, and you can run someone down really effectively with this. You can also get away really effectively with this. The thing is that, generally speaking, it's not that good, and you're giving up either at 13 the flat armor reduction, which is really good, or you're giving up the better poke potential. I know there's a case that can be made for taking the Might of the Banshee Queen at 1 and then transition into Windrunner at 13, and you can do a lot of spell damage, like auto-attack a bunch, activate your E to jump forward, and then auto-attack a bunch. Like, it can do a lot of work, potentially, by hitting people with Haunting Waves. You can use your Haunting Wave as an aggressive tool, but Sylvanas is not meant to dive in and sit in the middle of a team. If you're doing that, you're going to die. We're in a very stun-heavy meta, where assassins can do a pretty good chunk of damage and usually have some decent CC in the form of slows, or in some cases, stuns or roots. You've got tons of support characters that have roots and stuns. You have tons of tanks that can stun. Like, taking this is almost like a win more talent, similar to taking Deafening Blast. I just really don't like it. I don't think it's a good talent. There's a case that can be made for it, but I don't see that case made very effectively very often. Last thing I'll talk about is I will talk about the level 4 talents, and then I'm going to call it quits there because I'm almost at, I am at 30 minutes. Wow. So level 4, your talents that really matter the most are knowing, okay, what map am I playing on and how should I play the objective? If you are on maps like Volskaya Industries or Hanamura, where you have turret camps and things like that, where you pick them up and you have some kind of benefit for activating them later, especially turret camps on those two maps, you want to go Mercenary Queen, because it buffs the damage that those turrets do. It's very, very strong. Not only that, taking out both of those camps is not very difficult to do. You can alternate your auto attack between the minion that heals the turret and the turret itself, and you can solo the camp. It's not very fast, so you have to be careful that the other team is not trying to like steal the camp from you and engage on you, but because it's tied to your auto attacks, you can also E to get out. You just Haunting Wave and you're safe. So very, very safe talent to take there. It's also great on maps like, I want to say Braxis is a good one to do it on, because Braxis holdout, you've got lots of camps that Sylv is probably going to be in the same lane as that camp pushing, because you want Sylv pushing with the Zerg wave that's coming. It's really strong for her to activate her trait and push that stuff down, and if you have a camp pushing along with the Zerg wave with a Sylvanas, it's going to tear through structures extremely fast and is really good there. Basically any map where your Sylvanas and your team are going to be kind of pushing together and probably have a camp backing you up too, it can be really good. Dragonshire is another one that's potentially really strong as well. If you're on a map where you need fast wave clear, great example, Tomb of the Spider Queen. Unstable Poison is your best friend. Another good map that you could consider this on is Infernal Shrines. Now, this does not affect the minions dying in Infernal Shrines, like the actual monsters, because they're considered a monster, not a minion. But Infernal Shrines is another map where you have that middle and bot lane and you want to rotate quickly. So you will blow up a wave, rotate down, blow up a wave, rotate, get the camp, rotate up, etc. And having Unstable Poison can just speed up your camp clear that little bit quicker. If you're ever unsure of which one is better, and you're like, well, okay, I know about Braxis, Volskaya, Hanamura, Infernal Shrines, and Tomb of the Spider Queen, I don't know about all these other maps, I don't know what's good. Take Possession. Possession is safe. Let me just quickly reset the forts, and let me refresh the minions. So now we got minions pushing in the lane. I'll reset talents really quick. We're going to do the sustain build. I'll take Possession, Lost Soul, all the fun stuff. Alright, while I'm in the lane here, I can just turn this entire backline into a bunch of archers, and your archer minions are what does the most damage. More times than not, your tank minions will come up and be able to tank most of this, and then you have a free extra archer minion applying pressure to the fort. If you want to make the wave a lot more resilient, then all you have to do is possess the tank minions, and they will make the wave much beefier and harder to take down. If you're ever rotating between lanes, heading towards an objective, and you really, really need to get a little bit of health or mana back, you can get the caster minion, and it gives you a regen globe for free, because it counts it as defeating it or killing it, even though it changed sides. So Possession is a really nice, safe, all-around, like, minion wave creep pushing talent. If Sylv is ever rotating with the 4-man, and you have to go to an objective, if you can on her, before you leave, transform a couple of minions in the wave and then go on. You're getting free push value out of it. Even if you're not getting the value from it like an Asmodan does with the General from Hell or whatever, or the Hellborn General, I'm not quite sure what the name is, I don't play a lot of Asmodan myself. Even though you're not getting that same kind of value that Asmodan would, you're still getting value because the wave is naturally pushing the structure down, and structures dying passively gives you experience. So I believe that's it for going over everything with Sylvanas. I've kind of gone over the builds with her that you would want to do. Kind of explained why certain talents really aren't so good over others. I think the last thing I'll talk about, I guess, before I call it quits here, is picking your build. Usually, whenever you're doing a build on Sylvanas, you really need to think about what the enemy team is doing. If they are doing a comp that is very frontline oriented, then you need to look and go, okay, what heroes do they have? Do they have a ton of blinds? Because if they have a ton of blinds, This auto attack centric build might not be good, but the dagger build will be fantastic because there's a lot of frontline, or there's a lot of beefy targets that clump up. Let's say that they've got a team that has a ton of sustained damage. Good example of this is to have Johanna, Lucio, maybe they go double healer with Uther, maybe they've got a Sonya in that comp, things like that. Okay, well, unfortunately, I'm not really going to have a great way of being able to do a ton of sustained damage to them because the Lucio will out-heal it, the Sonya will out-heal it with her Tornado build, or Whirlwind build, sorry. Johanna has Laws of Hope at 1, as well as just being able to activate her trait a bunch. She's really tanky. That team is really tanky, so you can do a sustained damage build, but it gets offset and is much harder to justify. Instead of doing that, go burst build. Go with mind control at 10. Make some great picks happen. Not only that, because of Sylvanas' flexibility, if you take her and you wanted to do like a classic pick comp, something like Garrosh, Malfurion, Sylvanas. Garrosh will slam the target, throw the target behind him, Malfurion drops a root somewhere near where Garrosh throws the target, Sylvanas throws a mind control out. Or mind control first, do that transition next. Or stitches into Uther into Sylvanas, things like that. In those cases, a mind control build is great. But if your team suddenly can't do a pick comp because the enemy team did some crazy thing like they picked an Anduin. Okay, well, Anduin struggles with AoE damage. Do the sustained poke build or do the sustained dagger build, depending on how the rest of their team plays out. The bottom line is Sylvanas is one of the most flexible assassins in the game and one of the best, because the last great thing that makes Sylvanas so good that I haven't really put a lot of time talking into until now is Black Arrows. You activate this and you turn off buildings. If your team is playing something like Towers of Doom and you've got a crazy good offlane soaker, talking about Traxix and talking about Tetcher when Tetcher was on the team, you would have somebody that would just be constantly double soaking while a 4-man would be in the bot lane, shoving the wave down. And if that double soaker was doing crazy good at doing the push and being able to soak experience and to actually apply pressure to buildings, if you have a Sylv in that bottom 4-man, do you know what you do? That team has to do something to answer that offlaner, whether it's a Zool or a Diva or a Sonya or whatever's in the offlane. At some point, either they have to answer the fact that that offlaner is getting the team with the Sylvanas that much soak, or they have to bring that offlaner down to try and do a 5v4, or they're going to send one player from that team in the 4-man up to the mid lane to help do a 1-1-3 soak. When there's a 1-1-3 soak going on with a Sylvanas on your team, you shove the crap out of the lane that you're in. No exception, because Sylvanas can turn the structure off and you can get so much value from applying pressure. And that's what makes Sylvanas great overall. Oh, shit. My camera's been blocking this the whole time. I'm sorry. Let me put my face up here real quick so you can actually see what the trait does. The point being that Sylvanas' kit makes her fantastic at applying pressure on any kind of level. She's great to do pressure by poking the team down for a bunch of damage. She's great at constantly spreading poison damage over time and scaling in the late game. She's great at applying pressure in lanes. She's great at applying pressure to the other team with a blow-up comp. She is one of the most flexible assassins in the game, and she's, I would argue, one of my favorite assassins as of late. I wasn't a big fan of her when they did the rework because I was so used to AFK pushing lanes back when specialists were push waves or like experience soaking heroes, almost like junglers. But now I've gotten used to her. Her damage output is really good. You just need to know how to build her and how to play her. It's going to take practice from whoever it is that's going to play her. You need to understand how to use Haunting Wave effectively. You're going to need to understand when the best time to use Wailing Arrow is. You need to know how to follow things up really well. You need to understand how to pick your build against the comp you're against. But if you play her right, she can decimate any team with some practice and some work. So I hope that was at least somewhat helpful for everyone. I'll catch y'all in another video. Peace.